begin with breaking news this hour on a horrific highway crash not far from the U.S.-Mexico border. The sheriff of DeMitt County, Texas, says U.S. Border Patrol was chasing a vehicle at about 100 miles per hour when that vehicle rolled and crashed. Now, it was packed with people, police say, who were undocumented immigrants. And at last update, 5 of those people are dead. CNN's Nick Valencia is in Brownsville, Texas, and CNN's Polo Sandoval is in northern New Jersey, where a group of U.S. lawmakers nearly had to shove their way into an immigrant detention center a short time ago. But first, I want to head to Nick in Texas. Tell us what you're hearing about what happened and what police are saying, Nick.
Hey there, Anna. Just to set the scene for where we are right now in Brownsville, we're outside of the largest children immigrant detention or facility, child care facility, I should say, in the country. We're waiting for that group of Democratic lawmakers that have been touring the border all day long to make their next stop here. But meanwhile, we are getting news of a tragic crash just a few hours north of here involving a vehicle carrying at least 12 undocumented immigrants driven by their U.S. citizen smugglers. Now, according to the sheriff's office there in Gwinnett County, this vehicle pursuit started about noon local time, involving Border Patrol and also one of his sheriff's deputies. That vehicle was given chase at about 100 miles per hour, eventually going off the road, catching some gravel and flipping, killing at least 5 people inside. The local sheriff's office used this incident as a chance to highlight the border insecurity, saying this is just another event that happens every single day near and around the border. Some of you at home may be wondering what Border Patrol was doing involved in this situation. They have a large swath of jurisdiction, not just the physical line of the border here where we are near Brownsville, just a few miles away from that U.S.-Mexico border crossing. But this chase involving this group of undocumented immigrants is being highlighted by the local sheriff here as a reason of this ongoing immigration crisis. And he's calling it just another day along the U.S.-Mexico border. Anna?
Nick, are police then connecting this deadly crash today and the chase to the uptick in border-related chaos right now, or is this totally unrelated?
That would seem to be a logical segue here. He didn't explicitly say that, the local sheriff, when he was talking about this incident, but he was saying it's incidents like this that put American lives every single day on the line. When undocumented immigrants being smuggled by their coyotes or U.S. citizen smugglers give chase like this, it puts a lot of danger on those on the road. It's just another incident here highlighting the ongoing crisis along the U.S.-Mexico border, Anna.
Okay, so let's head from the southern border now to New Jersey, where Polo Sandoval is, where we saw a really bizarre scene play out today, kind of surreal, as we saw U.S. congressmen pounding on a door at an immigrant detention center there in Elizabeth. Polo, what did they want and what happened?
Well, it all played out here on it. If it wasn't for that white Department of Homeland Security sign out front, you'd hardly even guess that this building is home to about 250 undocumented people. Today, that group of Democratic legislators traveled here to visit 5 of those men who are being detained at this facility. They had worked out separate arrangements with the attorneys of those men. As they arrived here, they were met by the staff, refusing access initially. This is how it all played out, as you described, in a very bizarre scene this afternoon.
Members of Congress were entitled to do this.
Now you did wrong. Now you did wrong. You were doing fine up until now. Now you did wrong. This is America. This isn't Moscow.
So how did all of this end? After about an hour and 45 minutes, supervisors were called, the police department was called, things certainly never getting out of hand, but these lawmakers demanding to see these 5 men who were here to see. They finally made their way inside, met with these 5 men. 3 of them had been recently detained at the border, separated from their children, and then transferred here to New Jersey, where they continue with their immigration proceedings. These lawmakers describing for us earlier today that emotional account from these men on Father's Day, not being with their daughters. But in the meantime, I can tell you that these pictures are certainly not unusual. We have seen this before. We saw it 2 weeks ago in Brownsville, Texas. We saw it today in West Texas. Tomorrow we'll see it in California. Democratic lawmakers headed to these facilities to try to see firsthand how some of these detainees are being treated, and also calling for the stop of this kind of policy. Anna?
Polo Sandoval there in New Jersey, Nick Valencia in Brownsville, Texas for us. Thank you both. I'm going to take you to McAllen, Texas now, where just a short time ago I spoke to 2 lawmakers who went inside government facilities there processing these children and their family members. Here's my conversation with Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley and Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. Watch.
Well, Senator Merkley and I just visited one of the processing centers here in McAllen, where they're putting a lot of the kids and separating them from their parents. We talked to one of the moms there who'd been separated from her daughter. The mom and daughter had come from Guatemala. They asked for asylum, but now the mom's being prosecuted as a criminal and will be separated from her daughter. This is a deliberate and inhumane policy, and we're here to say to President Trump, end it today.
Do you know the age range of the children being separated?
Oh, there's a very wide age range. I mean, I think they've made a policy, I think if you're under 5, they're not going to actually take you from your mom or dad, but we don't really know. This is a lot of chaos down here, but through all the chaos, there are some things that we can see very clearly, which is they are deliberately enforcing this new policy of separating moms and dads from their sons and daughters.
Senator Merkley, I know you guys were talking about the processing centers where the parents are working their way now through the immigration system. I'm curious if you've had a chance to actually see the facilities where the children are being kept, and I'm curious as to what you can tell us about those facilities.
We are going to be able to see that facility in Brownsville later today. We have not seen it yet. We did, of course, see the children who were held inside here in wire mesh chain link cages there are about 30 by 30, a lot of young folks put into them. I must say, though, far fewer than when I was here 2 weeks ago. I was told that buses full were taken away before we arrived, and this is one of my concerns, that essentially when you have to give lengthy notice, you end up seeing a little bit of a show rather than seeing what's really going on at these centers.
So there are a couple of things that I hope you can shed light on, because one of the things that we know is happening is that they are prosecuting everybody who's crossing the border illegally, leading to these families being separated. But do either of you know whether any of the families that are going through this are actually coming through the points of entry seeking asylum, or all of them crossing the border elsewhere, hence making it illegal?
Yes. Here's what's going on. It's a comprehensive strategy of preventing people from seeking asylum. So at the bridges, those who already have documents, passports, and so forth are let in, while those seeking asylum are kept in the no man's land between Mexico and the United States. Then we've talked to those who work with refugees, who have talked about people being in that no man's land for 6, 7, 8. There was a Washington Post report of 9 days. We talked to a lawyer, a pro bono lawyer, who had talked to families that were there 10 and 12 days. So they're not being let in easily at the official border points where it's absolutely legal to assert asylum. So other families are going and saying, well, we can't just be in the heat. I mean, I'm sitting here sweating a lot. Can you imagine being out here 9 or 10 days waiting without a supply of food and water? And so they're going across the border, and that's where the administration is saying, oh, they broke the law crossing the border outside the border checkpoint, so now we'll arrest them and treat them as criminals and take their kids away. I have also heard, though, of a number of stories of people who did cross at the official checkpoints who have also been charged with a crime and separated from their children.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, and I asked Mr. Padilla, who was the officer in charge here at the processing facility, whether any of the kids there had been separated from their parents after coming across a legal point of entry. And his response was he didn't know. He didn't know if that kind of separation was happening. What we do know is that those who are waiting for a long time, as Senator Merkley said, to try and come across the official points of entry, they're backed up for days and days. They hire somebody to take them across the river, and then bang, they can get them and separate them immediately from their moms and dads, the children, the sons and daughters from their moms and dads.
As you know, President,
I really want to emphasize here, I just want to emphasize that regardless of how well kids are cared for at a detention center, it is inflicting enormous trauma on the children and enormous angst on the parents to engage in this family separation. And there is no need at all, no justification of any kind for doing so as people await asylum hearings.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned that you believe children older than 5 years old are the ones who are being separated, but then we also are hearing reports of a mother who was breastfeeding when her child was taken from her. Do you believe that to be true, or is that a report that was a rumor that got out and is untrue?
Well, based on our conversations with the attorneys here and some of the other folks who have been helping people asking for asylum, there's no doubt that this is sort of a chaotic process, and I believe those reports are very credible. We also heard reports about moms and dads being told that their kids had to be taken to take a bath, and then they never return. So I think the bottom line here, Anna, is that this is a deliberate policy. This is a choice that President Trump made. There's no law, despite what he says and how often he says it, there's no law that requires this inhumane policy, and they should end it today.
He is blaming Democrats for what's happening there. Senator Merkley, how do you respond?
Yes, well, the president has no credibility on this topic. There was no new law that caused this. There was no law that was passed by Democrats. This is an administrative policy that they started considering, according to the press reports, when he first came into office. And then they started a pilot project last summer. They told the American people they weren't separating kids. They were. Then they said they were doing it to protect them from smugglers. How is it possible that a parent with a child safe here in the United States is being protected from a smuggler by separating that person from the child? And then the president a couple days ago said, well, there's another value of this policy, and that is it gives him leverage with legislation. Let me just say that to hurt children, to get leverage on legislation, is evil and completely unacceptable.
I'll leave it there, guys. I know you got to go. Thank you so much for taking the time, for helping to shed some light as to what's happening there on the ground. We'll be in touch with you. Thanks. Senator Chris Van Hollen and Senator Jeff Merkley.